Welcome back to Fact Checkin BTB. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. This week we're going to be going over episode 162 of Below the Belt. This was actually released December 9th, 2019. For context, this is right after the UFC DC card, which was headlined by Alistair Overeem and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And also we had that big boxing fight between Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua. So, most of this episode's focused around those two topics, as well as the approaching UFC 245, which is a monster card, and he definitely gets into it a little bit there. But there are a couple of things that he was off on. So here we are, fact-checking once again, but just out of respect and all that stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, so let's kick this thing off real quick. First and foremost, he talks about Andy Ruiz. Before fighting Joshua, he was 29-1. Just to put into context, when you guys are talking about boxers, they get to pad their record a little bit more than MMA fighters. So he has a good record, and his only loss was ever to Joseph Parker, who he himself was undefeated up until he ran into Anthony Joshua. So Andy Ruiz has been fighting stiff competition, so he had a little bit of a name amongst the boxing faithfuls, but us maybe casual boxing fans that are more so diehard MMA, we probably didn't hear about Andy Ruiz, but he definitely was accomplished before coming into this fight with Joshua. At least the first one, and then the second one, he puts on 15 pounds of muscle mass, whatever you want to call it. All right, next up, the producer on Below the Belt, I think it's Nick. They never say his fucking name, so if anybody can hit me with that, that would be very helpful. He said that Cynthia Calvillo was actually suspended for USADA in the past, and he was correct. She did test positive for an in-competition drug test for marijuana metabolites. She was actually suspended for 6 months, but then it ended up getting extended to 9 months. Not entirely sure why, nor could I find a reasoning as to why. So, yes, she was out for a little while. Rozenstruik. He talks about Jairzinho Rozenstruik's finishing punch. He called it an uppercut. I know he probably just had a lapse in judgment at the time, but it was an uppercut that set up the punch. So it was like a rear uppercut, and then it was like a leaping lead right hook. So with his lead hand, he pretty much left for it, and you see him kind of like leave the ground as well too. Like he really propelled himself into that punch, which caused obvious damage to Alistair Overeem's face. So it was a left uppercut to set up the leaping lead right hook, not just an uppercut. What's next for Jairzinho? Pretty simple. He keeps calling out Francis, so I think that's the fight that should happen. Schaub doesn't seem too intent on seeing that fight happen because he wants to see Jairzinho brought up a little bit slower. I don't mind. Ngannou doesn't have anybody to fight, so I'm sure he would accept any fight at this moment, and I believe he affirmed that on the the Ariel Helwani show. I just wanted to call it the MMA Hour again, but yes, on the Ariel Helwani ESPN show, Francis Ngannou pretty much reluctantly accepted it because nobody else wants to fight him. So yeah, that's what should be next for Jairzinho. Jairzinho's training camp, he didn't know exactly where it was. He should kind of know the name Hard Knocks 365, but that is Henry Hoof's gym down in Florida. And it was actually it was formerly the Black Zealands. There's a lot of guys from the Black Zealands, if you guys remember that camp, pretty much headed by Glenn Robinson. Maybe as the face, not so much as the coach. Henry Hooft was definitely the coach over there. But then they split up, and then Henry Hooft opened up his own gym, but most of the guys flooded on over to him, just like Usman and a couple of the other Hard Knocks guys, the former Black Zillions guys. So yeah, that's where Jairzinho trains out of. Colby Covington now. Talked about him being a volume puncher, and that's pretty correct. Let's just look at his last fight against Robbie Lawler. 515 thrown significant strikes, 179 of them landing. I believe he broke a record. I'm absolutely certain he's broken a record with that. He landed 179 at a 34% clip. And in terms of takedowns, he was very relentless with those as well. He attempted 18 and he landed 10 of them. So very, very active and definitely a volume puncher, but also just a volume fighter overall. Colby Covington, I think they said that he got taken down once. Just to be clear, he's actually been taken down 3 times by Rafael dos Anjos and 2 times by Dong Young Kim. The Woodley versus Usman fight and Woodley not totally being there, I kind of disagree with that. Usman's style just brings that out of people. He really shuts him down. He's kind of a volume guy himself too. That's what him and Colby really share in common here, which is why the fight this weekend is so interesting. But just as an example, in that Woodley fight, he landed 141 significant strikes and he threw 194. So he landed at a much better clip than Colby Covington. But obviously was able to shut down Woodley's game. And in my opinion, you can't discredit Usman from having such a great performance and saying that Woodley just didn't show up. I think if they fight like 10 out of 10 times, that's probably going to happen. In terms of grappling statistics between Usman and Colby, he really gets balls deep into this fight, and you can't blame him. Kamaru Usman, he's landed 3.96 takedowns per 15 minutes, 50% takedown accuracy, 100% takedown defense. That's where they differ here. Colby Covington lands a little bit more takedowns with 5.69 takedowns per 15 minutes, 51% takedown accuracy, and he has a 78% takedown defense. So Kamaru never been taken down. Colby has 5 times to be exact, just as I said earlier in this episode. Moving on to Alexander Volkanovski, he couldn't really figure out which gym he was from. He knew he trained with Adesanya. Daniel Hooker's out of that gym too, but it's actually City Kickboxing, and it's headed by head coach Eugene Behrman. Volkanovski was a former rugby player before he came into the UFC, and they kept talking about how thick he was back in the day. The guy weighed 214 pounds, standing at 5'6", and now he cuts down to 145 pounds to fight guys in MMA, which he started in 2012. Although he's had tough weight cuts in the past, like they were hinting at, to 145 pounds, but he's never missed weight. So he's never actually missed weight, no matter how bad we've always talked about how bad he's always looked when it comes to weight cutting. Jermaine Durandamy was actually the first ever featherweight champion, but she refused to fight Chris Cyborg due to Cyborg's history with PEDs, so she vacated the belt. So she actually was the first featherweight champ. Amanda Nunes did KO Julia Budd back in Bellator, back in the day. Budd is actually currently the Bellator 145-pound champion, and she's actually about to fight Cyborg, speaking of Cyborg, on January 25th, 2020 for Bellator. Diego Sanchez just signed to fight Michel Pereira. You guys will know him as the flashy, jumping around, kicking guy and gas yourself out type of, that guy. He's going to be fighting Diego Sanchez, and they're talking about how long Diego Sanchez has still been around and kicking the can around. Diego's actually been fighting for the UFC since April 9th, 2005. That was his Ultimate Fighter finale fight against Kenny Florian, and then he also competed in his next fight for UFC 54. We're talking about over 200 pay-per-view events ago. This guy has just been kicking. He must be the longest reigning UFC fighter in terms of still on the roster. They quickly talked about Alan Crowder and his retirement. They said something about how much they wanted to know how much he got paid throughout his career. So I calculated that up over his 3 fights that he's had. He made a total of $51,500, and that's just contract and stuff. I'm not sure if there's anything else really thrown in there. He didn't really win a performance of the night or anything, so there was nothing to account for in terms of that. And then lastly, to end off the episode, just want to give you guys a quick background on Nate Marquardt. You hear him talk a lot about Nate Marquardt in most of his episodes whenever they're talking about, guys from Denver or people that he used to look up to. The guy was a motherfucker back in the day. He was really good. And for the newer fans, like post-Conor fans, you guys probably have no idea who Nate Marquardt is. And even if you do, you've probably only ever seen him get finished or ever just lost. It's unfortunate, but he was a beast back in the day. He actually challenged Anderson Silva back at UFC 73, July 7th, 2007 for the middleweight title, and obviously things didn't go his way, but he did get to the pinnacle of the sport in terms of fighting for a UFC belt. But in terms of belts, he actually KO'd Tyron Woodley in the 4th round to win the Strikeforce welterweight title. And that was one of the biggest, I'd say the biggest accomplishment he had in his career, because he did end up losing the belt the next fight to Tarek Safadine. And then since then, he pretty much fell on hard times. And this was post-2012. So he went 3-9 in his last 12 fights. That's not the best. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That wraps up this episode. It's a pretty quick episode, 11-ish minutes. I'm happy with that. Maybe less than that. That's the point of these. I want to make them quick, concise, give my 2 cents on certain things that I feel like I can touch on, but mainly just trying to correct my boy Brendan Schaub over there. Again, nothing but respect. It's just fun to do when I listen to podcasts every fucking week while I'm at work, so it's easy to just quickly jot down things that I feel like I can correct for him. All right. That's about it. Check out the rest of the YouTube channel if you guys have stumbled upon this. Main gig is MMA handicapping, giving you guys predictions and betting advice. So check out the MMA Lawcast episode 64 that just came out. And yeah, hit your boy with the subscribe. Hit me with the like. I'll be dropping these. Normally I should be dropping them every Tuesday. I just got caught up in something this week, but I want to drop them as soon as I can. As soon as I'm available to listen to it at work, that same day I can get back and fact check these for you guys and get it out ASAP. So hope you guys enjoy it, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.